The Long Road by Wolfland. Wallace's jaw hung open at the furious action, but Stephen was too stunned to notice. All throughout the last exchange, he hadn't uttered a single command, and yet Matang had done everything he had planned on telling it. Somehow, they must have shared some kind of unspoken communication. Taj and Mira had said something to that effect with trainers of psychic Pokemon. It was only as the realization struck that he noticed he, too, was breathing heavily, as if he had somehow been the one to deliver those blows. Did their connection mean that Matang might soon evolve? Stephen no longer had the luxury to ponder, as Kingdra uttered a mighty cry and renewed its offense at Juan's shout. Twister! The windstorm quickly kicked up around Matang, trapping it within the swirling vortex. Hang in there, Matang! Stephen shouted. Try to break through with Psychic! A faint blue outline appeared through the twister, but just as the wind began to die down, the outline faltered as Matang flinched, its concentration broken. Juan smirked. Kingdra, focus energy! Still caught in Twister's winds, Matang was helpless to stop Kingdra from getting pumped, and Stephen felt his jaw clench. Now, any hit from Kingdra could be dangerous. Don't give it room to attack! Bullet punch! As the wind subsided, Matang flew towards Kingdra, intent on keeping its opponent on the defensive. But Kingdra was fast. Just before Matang made contact, another point-blank ice beam sent Matang tumbling back, this time shrieking in pain. Stephen cursed under his breath. The ice-type attack shouldn't have been so powerful, but focus energy had increased its impact. Still chattering in dismay, Matang retreated back to Stephen's side of the field, where its trainer was deep in thought. Red eyes slid over questioningly, and Stephen gazed back with confidence. He'd have to thank Wallace later, but after that last exchange, he had a plan. Now all he had to do was relay it to his partner without Juan finding out. Slow it down, with Scary Face! Stephen pointed as he concentrated, hoping that maybe Matang might sync with his thoughts just like before. But as Kingdra shuddered under his Pokemon's speed-reducing technique, Matang didn't seem to move beyond its initial instruction. Hiding his sigh, Stephen resigned himself to the traditional battle style. Get in there with Bullet Punch once more! Whether or not the strategy was successfully relayed, Matang obeyed with an aggressive cry, taking off towards Kingdra again. Stephen could hear Juan sigh, but he ignored it. As Matang closed in, Kingdra reared back just as before, readying its ice beam just a hair slower than last time. Aim for that water! Stephen shouted, and Matang twisted mid-strike. Its fist slammed into the pool's surface, sending a column of water flying right underneath Kingdra's nose. The dragon's eyes went wide as its ice beam connected with the water, freezing it solid around the two Pokemon. A screech filled the air, but it didn't belong to Matang. Stephen imagined it had been a while since Kingdra had taken a hit from an ice-type attack, and surely it didn't feel good. Break free and finish it with Zen Headbutt! Kingdra's eyes were wide and wild as it struggled to free itself from the ice pillar, but with its head and wing handily trapped, it could only watch as the ice cracked free from around its opponent's form with a psychic push and a swing of its metal claws. Matang shined triumphantly as its body glowed in a purple light. The column of ice exploded into shards as Matang drove itself headfirst through the captive Kingdra's midsection. Both Pokemon slammed into the rear wall of the pool in an explosion of water and tile. Juan's face was grim as Kingdra remained awkwardly bent over the edge of the pool from the force of the attack. Matang let out a hesitant chatter, waiting for the Sea Dragon Pokemon to recover. But when its opponent's only response was the way its head lolled weakly to the side, the referee made the announcement in conjuration with the recall beam of Hoenn's Pokeball and a shake of the leader's head. Kingdra is unable to battle! All of Leader Hoenn's Pokemon have been incapacitated! The challenger wins! Relief flooded Steven's veins as he let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He barely had enough time to regain his composure before Matang barreled into him, chattering excitedly. Hey! Hey! Steven laughed as he tried to keep his partner from dunking the two of them into the pool in its exuberance. When he had finally calmed Matang with quiet praise and returned it to its ball, he spotted Hoenn circling the edge of the pool, a proud smile on his face. Well done, he proclaimed with a round of applause. You surely have proven yourself a capable trainer. Tackling a gym that specializes in a weakness of yours is quite a feat, and you handled it marvelously. By now, Wallace had arrived at his master's side and had fixed Steven with a look that was a mixture of both admiration and puzzlement. It is with great honor that I bestow you with the Rain Badge, proof that you have taken on the top water trainers in the region and come out victorious. Both master and student bowed before Wallace stepped forward and presented the badge in an upturned palm. The Rain Badge shimmered as Steven held it in his grasp, the swirls of blues and greens reminiscent of the hues in the waterstone he had bestowed to the trainers standing before him. When you get to Evergrande, you aren't allowed to lose. Excuse me? Steven blinked, surprised. Master says I'm not allowed to be friends with losers. It's not good for the complexion. At Wallace's deadly serious expression, Steven couldn't hold in a laugh, and Wallace only scowled further. I'll do my best. I don't plan on losing either, but you never know. Well, you'd better not, huffed Wallace as he turned away, arms crossed. You know, I really enjoyed our battle today. Wallace gave a cautious glance back over his shoulder, where Steven stood, smiling warmly. And I'm sure I'll enjoy our next battle just as much, whether I'm champion or not. Steven's smile seemed to be contagious, as the water-type trainer soon found himself wearing one of them. I was simply making sure your Pokémon weren't too tired to take on Master's team. There was a cheeky twinkle in Wallace's eyes as the leader in training extended a hand. Don't think I'll go so easy on you next time. Steven accepted it without hesitation. I'd expect nothing less. Until we meet again. Until we meet again, Wallace repeated, watching Steven's retreating form wind his way towards the gym's exit. That boy is truly a special trainer, Hoenn mused, twirling the end of his mustache with a faint smile, but Wallace's brow furrowed in thought at the words. Master, that battle surprised me. How so? Well, I didn't think you'd use Celios so soon after it evolved. Hoenn gave his pupil an even look. Wallace, that was my Walrein. The Celio you've been training for me hasn't evolved yet. What? Including Kingdra, that was nearly my full competitive team. And to think that Matang of his still has one more evolutionary stage. What? It was hard for Wallace to protest further, with his jaw nearly hanging to the floor. Hoenn chuckled at his student's predicament and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I think you've picked a good rival, one who will truly challenge you to keep improving. Don't get complacent, and I'm sure the next battle will be one for the ages. Utilize different types of moves and unique combinations in order to build the ideal team. There is no single right answer, so experiment and practice with your Pokémon, and you'll be capable of handling anything thrown your way.